best half of football in the first half that we've seen the Arizona Cardinals play this year. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Clancy, follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Man, let me tell you what. First things first, we'll break down, what happened, what we saw. Thanks for hanging out on Twitter Spaces and on YouTube. From now on, I will not be doing the post-game show on Twitter Spaces. You better go to Locked On Cardinals on YouTube, subscribe, hit the like button, hit subscribe, because that's where I'll be doing it from now on. 14-10, remove the score from the situation. The Cardinals played better football than the Eagles from the first second of the first half to the last second. Obviously, it was a little bit front-loaded. Eagles came out, shot out of the cannon, scored 2 touchdowns, and it was like, well, this is Bill Murray, Groundhog Day, Sonny and Cher, I got you, babe, every morning. And for those that are too young to understand that reference, shame on you. Go watch Groundhog Day. The way it ended, these are my thoughts, okay? No bad penalties. No wasted timeouts. No almost delay of games because the plays weren't getting in on time. They're getting the plays off. And this sounds like backhanded compliments. It's not. It was a clear difference in how the plays were being run. Not the plays themselves. We'll talk about them. But how the plays were getting called in, the amount of time Kyler Murray had to assess at the line, he had wiggle room. He had time to adjust. And he made that great audible at the line on the little route by Benjamin set up the field goal. So there's a lot of positive to take out of that first half. There's a lot of positive to take out of that first half. Don't think about the numbers. Don't think about anything except for the theory behind what the Cardinals have done up until this point and what we saw in the first half. Because it was a clear difference, game plan-wise, by Cliff Kingsbury, Vance Joseph not needing to make adjustments because he had the right game plan going in, and Sean Kugler may be the star of the show in the first half with how the offensive line has protected Kyler Murray. Everything seems to be working, and the offense just came out flat again. That's the downside of the first half. The offense came out flat. The offense was a 16-year-old who set an alarm and snoozed it 48 times. That's what's happened all year. They don't get up on time. They're late for school. Once they're at school, they're a pretty good student, but they never show up to school on time, and that's what we've seen time and time again. This is the 5th first quarter in a row where the Cardinals have not scored a point. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for hanging out live halftime here. Cardinals trail 14-10 at halftime, but it's the best halftime score, regardless of number, that we've seen. Philadelphia comes in undefeated. Philadelphia and Jalen Hurts look really good, and the Cardinals have they've benefited from, you never wish anybody to become injured, whether it be your team or another. A couple injuries on the offensive line for the Eagles, which has allowed the pass rush to get home a little bit better, with a little bit more efficiency, or at least put enough pressure on Jalen Hurts where it rattles him a little bit. In the first quarter, the Cardinals actually played pretty good defense. There was a huge chunk gain on a 3rd and long. There was just Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith, where Jalen Hurts is just really good. Jalen Hurts is just really good. You can't fault anybody for that play. That's more of a he won as opposed to the Cardinals defense losing. And then the Cardinals defense started to button up. Byron Murphy has been a vision all year. Zach Allen deserves a second contract with the Arizona Cardinals. Zaven Collins continues to be the heartbeat in the middle of this defense. Things are really starting to mesh here. And they're starting to form in what could be a formidable defense for the next 5 or 7 years. Marco Wilson got picked on in the first half. He still seems to be a little bit of a weak spot in the secondary. But aside from that, When I say the defense is the strength of this team, I mean it. They're the more stable side of the football. Save Patrick Mahomes coming in week 1 when nobody played in the preseason and just running roughshod on this defense. This defense, so let's say, what is it? So 39, 50, 53. They've given up 53 points in the last 13 quarters. That's really good. That's really good. Especially against the Eagles team who scored 85 points in second quarters so far this season through 4 weeks. Like, this is a dream scenario for where the defense is through 4 weeks and a half. Especially with, the lack of additions there were this offseason. Like, players have stood up. Isaiah Simmons, still TBD. Marco Wilson, still TBD. This is not a defense that can win games for you against a high-powered offense. This is a defense, as I mentioned and will continue to mention, that are good enough to set the table for the offense to eat. And the offense needs to be better earlier. They need to be better earlier. Kyler Murray had looked the most composed that I've seen this season in the second quarter. He had time, he found open receivers, and he went through his progressions, and he's becoming not a running quarterback. And I don't think that people should be pushing back on that. Kyler runs, oh no, he may get injured. Kyler doesn't run, well, why does he need to run more? It's like you can't have it both ways. And if he can become a true behind the line of scrimmage passer, whether it be inside the pocket or outside, I think that benefits the Cardinals in the long run more. Sure, you want him to jump in and run when possible, but you don't want his legs to be the reason why you're in games. And that's what we were seeing, especially in 2020. And then 2021 in some capacity where, he had his high ankle sprain after week 7 against Green Bay. He's not able to run the ball. The offense craters. This is going to take some time, and we're starting to slowly see it work. This was a huge half for the offense, especially the second quarter. And again, it wasn't because of the points scored or not scored. They need to start faster, obviously. But plays getting called in on time, Kyler Murray being composed, no bad penalties, false starts, whatever, no bad timeouts when you can't get a play in on time. These things are things that have plagued the Cardinals since 2019 when Cliff Kingsbury took over. If those can be alleviated, that's one huge step for the Arizona Cardinals mankind. Just is. You can't shoot yourself in the foot in this league and expect to win games, especially with such a fragile ecosystem that the Arizona Cardinals roster is currently. You can't. And they didn't in the first half, and that's why they're still in the game. Kyler Murray, bad interception. Absolutely. Rondale Moore, what are we doing here? Okay, I didn't want to talk about this until the end. I'll talk more about this on my Snap Reaction post-game live podcast on YouTube only. I won't be doing it on Twitter Spaces anymore. So get your asses over to YouTube, will you? So, Rondale Moore, and for those that don't know, my moratorium is in full effect. I will not say one negative thing about Cliff Kingsbury until November 7th. Doing okay so far. Got some shakes, but, a little jittery, but I'm doing okay. The Rondale Moore situation is a microcosm of the hashtag definition of insanity that I've been discussing. Doing the same thing, expecting different results. Why not? Instead of lining up A.J. Green on the outside on 3rd and 7 go routes, put Rondale Moore out there. He's 5'7". He's not tall. Steve Keim, that you drafted a man who is not a traditional wide receiver size. Are you not going to use him like a wide receiver because he happens to be a size that you knew he was when you drafted him? That's insane. Use him like you'd use DeAndre Hopkins. Use him like you'd use Hollywood Brown. Use him. Don't put him on the field like he's Andy Isabella. Don't put him on the field when everybody in the building knows he's going to do dipsy doodle cartwheels in the backfield and then get the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Everybody knows what's coming, Clifford. I don't even know if that's his full name. I hope not. With a K? I would love to see Rondale Moore being used like Greg Dortch is, just to see. just to see, because by all accounts and what should be with conventional and rational wisdom, Rondale Moore should be a better version of Greg Dortch. That's the idea. That's the idea. Rondale Moore should be a better version of Greg Dortch. And we don't know if he is, because Cliff Kingsbury calls plays for Greg Dortch, and he should be calling for Rondale Moore when Rondale Moore is healthy. That should be the same route tree. That's why he was brought in, to be a difference maker. We saw it when he ventured into the great blue yonder of past the line of scrimmage last season. Massive gains. Had that huge touchdown down against Minnesota when Patrick Peterson was pointing at somebody else because he's a good teammate. And I can't remember the other game. There was a huge third down conversion with Rondale Moore just found space. One upside of a guy that's not 6'5" on the outside, like Mike Williams or A.J. Green, is he can sneak inside his zone, in between his zone. He's excellent in space. We saw it from the preseason when he was drafted. It's like, oh, that guy's an NFL player. You can tell NFL speed when you're playing in the preseason. Like, oh, yep, he's going to be really good. He's going to be really good. As my camera goes off and goes back on, I think that's time. Second half starting. Look at that. Alex Lancey, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure to join me post-game on YouTube. I will not be doing